The 2019-20 season was the longest in the history of the NBA, and it was almost entirely due to the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic. Unfortunately, just 2 months into the regular season, the virus has struck back in a different form called the Omicron variant. Let's expose why the NBA is postponing the season for the Omicron variant.
Last night it was the NBA suspending its season after Rudy Gobert of the Utah Jazz tested positive for the coronavirus. The league will use this hiatus to determine the next steps in dealing with the pandemic.
Omicron variant. COVID-19 has become the biggest threat to professional leagues and sports programs all over the world. Omicron is a new variant of the virus that was first reported to the World Health Organization from South Africa on the 24th of November, 2021. Barely 2 days after it was discovered, the WHO designated it as a variant of concern and named it Omicron. If you are wondering where they got the name from, it's just the 15th letter of the Greek alphabet. Health professionals love to name the variants after Greek letters. There are concerns that the virus has an unusually large number of mutations, many of which are novel. It is very possible that the Omicron variant can be transmitted faster, evade the immune system, and even be resistant to vaccines. All of these could affect the NBA significantly. Silver stated that the Omicron variant has become beyond dominant and is responsible for around 90% of the league's current COVID-19 cases. Teams have already been forced to change their game plans as athletes need to follow the league protocols regarding quarantine. Lakers player Carmelo Anthony shared his opinions about the outbreak, saying, "You just don't know what's going to happen, who it's going to affect, how it's going to affect somebody, the amount of time you will be out due to your health, what you're feeling, the symptoms," Anthony said. And then on the other hand, some people don't have symptoms. You don't know what to do right now. I think that's the frustrating part for everybody.
We're in the unique position where we can sequence every single positive case we get, and it's beyond dominant in the league right now. We're up probably around 90% of the cases right now that we're sequencing are Omicron.
Postponements. Over 140 players are currently in the NBA's COVID-19 health and safety protocols. The health and safety laws state that players who are not fully vaccinated must enter health and safety protocols if they are found to be in close contact with the person who has tested positive. In addition, players who have not received a booster shot would now be subject to tighter restrictions, including game day testing. If any player tests positive for COVID-19, he must immediately isolate until 10 days have passed from that test or the onset of symptoms, or until he tests negative on 2 PCR tests 24 hours apart. So far, the league has made its stance clear on educating players on the benefits of vaccines, even though they do not confer absolute immunity to the virus. The NBPA issued a statement Tuesday evening about the effort to get booster shots to players. It read, "Today, we committed to facilitating the delivery of booster shots to all eligible players, and the NBPA is strongly encouraging all of our players to receive a booster as soon as possible." As of Saturday night, the Nets alone had 10 players in health and safety protocols. On Sunday, the Cavaliers had 5 players enter protocols. All 5 players tested positive for COVID-19. The increasing number of cases has led to the indefinite postponement of many games. It has also reached a point where teams simply do not have enough players to compete anymore. Remember that teams must have a minimum of 8 healthy players in uniform before a game can take place. Let's quickly run down all the games that have been postponed so far. Brooklyn Nets at Portland Trail Blazers, originally scheduled for Thursday, December 23rd. Toronto Raptors at Chicago Bulls, originally scheduled for Wednesday, the 22nd. Washington Wizards at Brooklyn Nets, initially meant to hold on Tuesday, the 21st. Orlando Magic at Toronto Raptors, fixed for Monday, the 20th. New Orleans Pelicans at Philadelphia 76ers. Denver Nuggets at Brooklyn Nets. Cleveland Cavaliers at Atlanta Hawks. All 3 games were meant to take place on the 19th. Chicago Bulls at Toronto Raptors, initially scheduled for the 16th. Detroit Pistons at Chicago Bulls, earlier scheduled for the 14th. The Nets have not played since December 18th when they lost to the Orlando Magic with a lineup featuring several young players and those the team signed to 10-day contracts to make up for the number of players in the league's health and safety protocols. The next game is on Christmas against the Lakers, and if they still do not have enough players, then the marquee matchup would likely be postponed as well. The Raptors have been hit really hard by the Omicron variant, and they currently have 8 players in the league's health and safety protocols. The postponement means the Bulls, who played against Houston on Monday, will be off for 5 consecutive days, leading to Sunday's contest against the Pacers. By then, many of their key players would have returned to the fold. John Richardson, the Boston Celtics winger, who has shied away from questions about his vaccination status, tested positive for COVID-19 on December 10th. He only missed 2 games before returning to practice 5 days later after completing the needed negative test on consecutive days. Before re-entering the NBA's health and safety regulations on Sunday, Richardson played 2 more games, scoring a season-high 27 points on Saturday. The league's announcement of the postponed games came via a tweet from the account of NBA Communications. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday have seen some of their games postponed, while others have gone on as planned. 9 games have already been postponed, and more are potentially in doubt. The league and the National Basketball Players Association are working towards a plan in which teams in dire need of players would be able to sign reinforcements to 10-day contracts, although such deals would have no effect on salary cap and luxury tax figures. With the way things stand, you never know who is going to be in the lineup from one night to the next. Also, the NBA is looking to make some adjustments to the 10-day protocol by reducing it to 6 days only. This would mean that asymptomatic and non-infectious players could clear protocols just 6 days after testing positive for the virus. Until then, it remains to see how the NBA would tackle the rest of the season. According to Commissioner Silver, the virus will not be eradicated, and we're going to have to learn to live with it. If you already bought your tickets for the game that were postponed, you have nothing to worry about because the tickets will be automatically valid for the rescheduled dates. The league's officials are working round the clock to limit further postponements. It is looking to impose tighter protocols involving more frequent testing and strict face mask policies from Christmas to January 8th, according to ESPN. Under the current protocols, each player has a specific return to play timeline, which is also variable. Players with moderate to severe symptoms cannot exercise for at least 10 days following symptoms onset and must go through cardiac screening before being cleared. Players with mild symptoms cannot exercise for at least 7 days following symptom onset. Asymptomatic players cannot exercise for 3 days following the positive test. All players must be cleared by a team and league doctor before they can play in games, and players must be monitored by a cardiologist for 48 hours if they have moderate symptoms and for 72 hours if the symptoms are severe.
Yeah, game postponements and COVID positive player notifications have really been rolling in all afternoon. You mentioned it, the NBA announcing 5 games over the next 3 days have been postponed.
The current dilemma. James Harden is one of the Nets to have recently cleared protocols. Still, they have the most players in protocols. Half of the teams with games on Christmas Day still have many of their starters in doubt. All-stars like Giannis, Luka Doncic, Durant, and Irving remain in doubt. Remember that Irving sat out all the games this season as he refused to get vaccinated. The Hornets, Miami Heat, and New Orleans Pelicans have only a single player in protocol, with some other teams like the Nets have as many as 10 players in protocols. The Christmas Day schedule includes 5 matchups between the Boston Celtics and Milwaukee Bucks, Atlanta Hawks and New York Knicks, Golden State Warriors and Phoenix Suns, Dallas Mavericks and Utah Jazz, and Brooklyn Nets and Los Angeles Lakers. It is now clear that the league would take a big hit this Christmas. Of course, going ahead with the games would be unfair to some teams, and this would bring the NBA's motives into question. Talking about not being fair, here is what Silver had to say. "I think there's a recognition that these are the cards that we've been dealt," Silver said. "Of course, there's an amount of unfairness that comes with playing in certain cases with some teams where particular players are out because of COVID protocols. But the other advantage is we do have an 82-game season and we do have a long playoff, and my sense is things will work out by the end of the season. The NBA is testing everyone right now, the players, coaches, and staff. We can expect the positive cases to go up as more people get tested. That's the reality of the league at the moment. Remember that in 2020, Silver suspended league action over a single COVID case and became the first commissioner to do so. Now things have changed, apparently.
It's not up to me, it's on the league, and the league is trying to keep this season going, and it's of course it's really frustrating, for us and a lot of other teams.
A possible cancellation. 7 games have been postponed this week in addition to the 2 postponed last week. No details have been provided about the rescheduling of the games postponed. The NBA's decision to postpone some games can hardly be faulted considering the fact that the league has responded to the pandemic excellently. The stats are there. 97% of players in the league are vaccinated and 65% of those vaccinated have received a booster dose. These figures are far higher than the national average. However, despite the best efforts for the NBA, over half of the teams have experienced the effects of COVID on multiple players. More than a quarter of players have found themselves in protocols this month. The Christmas Day schedule is in shambles and experts can expect another peak in outbreak by mid-January. It goes without saying that possible cancellation of the season is on the horizon, at least for now. The NBA is no longer in a bubble. If the season continues without any further postponements, the league may likely continue to see a spike in COVID cases from the holidays through January and beyond, just as is expected to happen with the rest of the world. A series of decisions and agreements would need to be made in order to avoid suspension of the season.